Today, we are having a conversation with Kendra Lanterman, a rock star real estate agent at West and Main Homes. And we are very excited to have you here with us today, not only for our own selfish desires to learn, but also because we think that you will bring some valuable insights to our audience, which we're very grateful for.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for the invite. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited too. I would love to know how you got into the business. Like how did you get from being a wee young to where you are now?
Yeah, I have kind of a different story, I think, than a lot of realtors. So my grandmother was a realtor when I was in high school, and I needed a job. And she was like, well, we have an office manager position available at Frontier Better Homes and Gardens. So that takes us back a little bit, circa probably 99, 2000.
Okay.
And they had this shiny new office at 120th and Huron. And I was the receptionist on Saturdays, cleaning the kitchen, setting the showings, answering the phones. I did that for about a year, and then 3 of the top producing agents in the office approached me and said, hey, would you be our assistant? And I was like, yeah, that sounds way better than your dishes all the time in the kitchen. So we did that for like a year and a half, and I really got to learn the business from the inside out. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as I turned 18 and graduated high school, I got my real estate license. So
that is young. That's young for this industry for sure.
Yeah. Looking back, I don't know that I would necessarily recommend going that route because I see my kids and I'm like, at 18, who's going to trust you to buy a house, right? So it definitely was a slow start, but my grandma helped me along the way and I got to kind of learn under her. She had a very successful business. And so kind of watching that happen, being a showing assistant and helping with files and compliance and all, that's where I started, and then just grew from there.
Awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I want to get into a little bit about work-life balance because that's always something that's on our minds. We think and talk about it a lot. So my most important question that I have for you is, how do you wash all of the towels that your kids accumulate over the week? Like, do your
part-time
kids
job.
have like
Yeah.
Do your kids have an issue with just like pulling out towels?
Yeah. Actually, yes, they do. And we have a hot tub. So then there's like those towels. And then so we don't wash the hot tub towels like maybe once a month because you only use them one quick second, right?
Yeah.
But then the bath towels, it's a whole process. But yeah, we just tackle it as we can.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
It is like, it's just been on my mind lately. I don't know. You know, when you like see something and it just like starts to drive you crazy. Have you noticed that I've
noticed.
On a
I thought that was on
rampage?
me. Yeah.
Well, no, it's on you too. I just didn't want to publicly shame you, but you just did it to yourself.
I did put my foot down and I said, pajamas are a 2-night minimum. Like, this is getting out of hand. We don't need new pajamas every night. You guys shower at night. We can stretch those for at least 2 nights. We have enough.
This is being instituted immediately tonight.
And hot tub towels, no washing those all the time.
Yeah.
So
okay. All right.
But work-life balance is like definitely a hot topic. And I think the word balance is a struggle for me because I think that's a really hard thing to achieve. So I've gotten asked that question before, like, how do you do it? How do you, sell real estate and have work-life balance? My husband and I kind of made a plan to design a schedule that worked for us around real estate because real estate's so heavy nights and weekends, right? And so my family's everything and that's my first priority. But also if you're not there for your clients on nights and weekends, you're not going to be employed very much, right? So he was laid off in 2014, 15. And we really just kind of had to sit down. He didn't like his job anyway. The career path he was on wasn't fulfilling him. And we just kind of brainstormed and said, well, what if he stayed home? And then that opportunity for me to be able to say yes more when my clients wanted me would account to make up that income that he was lacking. And looking back, I mean, it's been the best decision that we could for our family. Financially, it's been great. And, there's been trials and struggles along the way because I think as a man, serving in that role is a little bit challenging. But we just really wanted to focus on family and like design a schedule around that would match with our goals and our morals and our values as a family and also allow us to serve our clients. So
I came across this quote recently that almost made me tear up. Always appreciate each little snuggle. There's always a final one as your children grow up.
God,
which
babe.
I know. Well,
What
you
the
told me. Well, because like
I know.
we do all the holiday stuff. You know, we do a lot of like Christmas and
Traditions.
yeah.
We
Yeah.
do,
But
we
do a
little
lot.
much.
So we
I
do a
think,
lot. So
but-
sometimes I think it was a couple years ago where I was like, just kind of burnt out with it. And I think you told me that, hey, they're gonna have like there's gonna be 5 or 6 more Christmases that are magical. And so that's great that y'all created those systems around that so that you can be nimble and flexible.
Yeah.
Because you could work 24 hours a day in real estate.
Yeah. Right. I mean, we're marketers, we're entrepreneurs, we're in charge of the finance, we're in charge of the deals. There's so many aspects of this industry. It's a 24/7 gig and you have to have the boundaries. I also think it's important for realtors to not always be attracted to the shiny thing that comes across your email or your desk. I could be on webinars every day of every week for the rest of my life, right?
Yeah.
And that's not getting me to the closing table. So like, I also love the idea of, I think it was in a Jen Hatmaker book years ago, that if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Right now, like my kids are 15, 12, and 5. We're busy, right? And so if it's something that's going to take me away from my family, it has to be a hell yes and worth it. And some things just aren't right now, and that's okay. But yeah, family's most important. Also on that note, my family, our needs as a family have been stronger this year. I've needed to be more present with my kids and with my husband. So my production's down a little bit. So it's a give and a take, but that's where the priority lies.
I think when your values are really clear, your choices are easy.
Yeah.
And so I think as you are getting all of these things thrown at you through your job, or like, oh, come to this happy hour, and it's like you can like detour, but then remembering like, hey, I'm committed to like being there for my kids at this certain time.
Yep.
You have to really be thinking about those values at the forefront of your mind all of the time, because otherwise you do go down a road that you don't necessarily want to be down.
Yeah, we're all busy. There's lots of opportunities to be busy, but what are you busy doing? Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Did you take the time to sit down and be intentional with those values that are important to you, or has that just come from experience?
I mean, I think we have not written out, but I think we both are really clear on what we want our family dynamic to look like. Yeah. From a business standpoint, though, there's books that I've read and podcasts that I've listened to. And one of my favorite quotes is, what's the highest and best use of your time right now? So like if my production's down, the highest and best use of my time isn't going to be something like a podcast, right? It's going to be like an open house or cold calling or buyer consultations, that kind of thing. So just always trying to like focus on that goal and then working backwards to make sure that my activities line up, I think is the best way to be productive and efficient.
That's great advice. There is the 80-20 rule in every business. The mortgage and the real estate business is no different. I'm always fascinated by that. How can, 2 people, same background, same information, same community, same company, same training, and one of them is successful and the other one is not.
Yeah.
For you, and so I like to learn about this, like, what would you say would be your key factors that attribute to your success in the industry?
I think when people work with me, they get a sense of who I really am. I'm vulnerable, I'm real, I'm honest, I'm funny. Like we just do the thing together, right? And so I remember at a period in my life where I had a minivan and I never thought I'd have a minivan. And I think like 4 or 5 clients said, I love that you drive a minivan. And I'm like, well, I've got a lot of kids, right? And so just being my authentic self. And I think people, they don't want the agent that always pulls up in a Bentley and has high heels on. And that's not me, right? And so I attract people that feel comfortable with me, hopefully feel comfortable referring me. And it's just like a more comfortable process. So I think just being really vulnerable and real is what people really want at the end of the day.
That's funny you said that. So I was telling Kendra as I was walking in that I was doing like that leadership training yesterday. And I'm trying to tell people all the time, like, if you are just, well, hopefully you're a good person, but like, if you're just who you are, people trust you and like find you credible. Like if you are an authentic person, that's going to come across and people automatically flock to you. Like this Jen is the same Jen you're going to get whether you see me at a restaurant or like on a Saturday or like at work. And so when you do that, people trust you because they know that that's the Kendra that you're getting. And I think sometimes people struggle because they're playing a part, and and they might not know themselves as well as they potentially need to, or they are insecure about who they are, whatever the reason is. I think it's just so valuable and so cool that you just walk into your job and are who you are.
Yeah, thank you.
And I could tell that, by the way, when we met from the second you, like, but like one of my favorite things is just like seeing authentic people. Yeah. And like, I could totally tell from the get-go when we met, and that's really great.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
One of the most interesting topics for my own self-examination over the years is like the difference between becoming successful and staying successful. Like for me, becoming successful was relatively easy. Like I was broke. I had a chip on my shoulder. I was like ready to go take on the world and achieve success, you know.
Yeah, that broke thing motivates you real quick.
It does. Yeah, it does. You know, you have a lot of energy and you sacrifice all of this stuff. And, you know, then you have a good month or you have a good year and you feel like, okay, I'm here now. I did it. Now what? You know? And then it's like, well, now you do it again, and then you do it again. So for you, like, how do you stay motivated and like continue to kind of drive your success in a competitive industry like real estate?
Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest challenges we face, right? It is a constant, you're putting your foot on the gas and then you get results and then you take your foot off the gas a little bit. And then it's just this cycle that's so hard. So for me, systems have been really huge. And I know you guys do that too. Like we're doing a podcast every month or every week or whatever it is, regardless of the production side of things. So just time blocking those rocks into my schedule that are the matter makers, and then having some flexibility around that too. And yeah, when I'm super busy, I'm not doing some of the stuff, but I'm hitting the main markers. And I think that's a good way to kind of keep focused. The other thing is just trying to find things that excite you. Like we've been doing the same thing for a long time. I'm in this 22 years. The process of contract to closing is fairly redundant. So finding ways to make it exciting, challenge myself a little bit. This year, all 3 kids are in school full time. So I got elected to be a board member for DMAR because I that feels exciting to me. I want to see the behind the scenes in the industry and get a different look at things to try to prevent myself from getting so like stagnant and mundane.
I think it's important to just walk into this, like, whatever you're doing, especially if you've been doing it for a long time, with this growth mindset of like, I'm going to constantly be learning. And like, I might have all of those components of, you know, the process nailed down, but like, how can I pull from like other things that are important to my industry or important for my personal growth? One thing you said, which I think is really important and not something that every agent does, but the systems piece, I think for you is, I just want to talk on that a little bit because we're obviously, I know we've talked about this, weirdos with systems to the point where like we just systemize everything. We do.
Well, I think you have to be. I mean, like when we talked about the work-life balance, like if you don't have systems, then you are running around reactive all the time, you know? So those systems, that discipline within your calendar, you know, opens up that freedom to be flexible or be spontaneous when you give yourself a day off.
Right.
But, and you mentioned time blocking too. So are you big on that? Like time blocking your calendar every day, every week?
Yeah, I really am. My most productive hours in the morning is 5 to 7 before the kids even get up. Right. So that is like my time in my office, warm cup of coffee. I light my candle. I look at my schedule. I figure out, and actually I look at my calendar the day before so I can kind of prep ahead. But the morning of, I'm in my calendar. What do I need to like focus on? What's my goal for that meeting? What am I hoping to achieve that, you know, at this later? But yeah, those time blocking schedules are literally in my calendar, repetitive week after week, what I'm doing. So I just think it helps quiet the noise of everything else going on.
Yeah.
And you're not having to make decisions in the moment. Like I think for me, one of the most difficult things, especially when you're pushed for time, like you don't have a lot of time or a lot of wiggle room, that decision making in the moment can feel incredibly overwhelming. So like if you have your time blocked out, you know, and look on Sunday and know what you're doing this week, and then look every morning to kind of like make adjustments. There's not this like anxiety around like, what do I have to get done today?
Yeah.
Like it's already there.
Yeah.
And it's like, it almost, I think for me, like reduces that like discomfort or anxiety sometimes around like needing to get everything done because you already know where it's going to go.
Yep. And just the time that we waste going like, oh, what should I do right now? You know, like I have 2 extra hours to work. I sit down on my computer and I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? And there's so much time lost in that moment. So having a plan is key. Yeah.
I love that.
Can you share any valuable lessons that you would say have contributed to your growth and achievements?
Yeah, I think one of my most humbling experiences, I was 18. I was at my first ever closing, and I thought it had been a really great process for everybody. Everybody was happy. We were at the closing table, and our client, my Nana was there, of course, and our client at the end said, Kendra, I think you're going to do really well, but it's okay if you don't know the answer to just say, I don't know. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like I didn't fool anybody. I remember at the walkthrough, he asked me a question and I kind of said, oh yeah, absolutely. I don't remember what it was about. And just him calling me out on that and giving me the space to be like, you don't have to know all the things. Find the answer, but you don't have to just know. And so I think that helped just be honest and transparent with my clients, right?
Yeah.
Every transaction can be different. There's still things 22 years later that I run into that I'm like, well, I've never had this before, so let's figure this out, you know, different things on title or things like that. So I'm grateful that he humbled me in that moment.
I like that.
But I think that goes back to you like being comfortable with who you are and like authentic. Like where like you know that it's totally fine to be like, yeah, not a clue, but like I'm gonna track it down.
I'm glad he told you that early.
Me
too.
too. Me too. Especially at 18, you think you know everything.
Oh yeah.
And that was just a good little dose of like, sister, you're 18. It's okay. You're not a structural engineer. You're not a, mold person. You don't have to know, but help me find the answer. Right. Yeah. And that's our job as realtors. Like, I'm not a title examiner. I'm not an inspector. I'm not an appraiser. But what I am is a guide for my clients. So knowing to stay in my lane has been really helpful.
Yeah. And giving yourself permission to do that.
Yep.
So that because you're not doing the client any favors by answering questions that are outside of your scope.
Yeah.
So when you're thinking about agents that maybe like work in your office or that you've kind of like helped or supported over the years, what is like some advice that you would give them when they're thinking about like, oh, we're going through a hard market or there's setbacks with their business? Like, what are some things that have been helpful for you?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Hard market and setbacks is like the hard heart, right?
That seems like the theme of 2023.
That's where we are. I know. And anybody that's pretending like this is the best market ever is just lying. So, I mean, this has been a hard year for all of us. I think another thing that our industry really, really fails us on is financial savviness when it comes to real estate. So if I could like host a class, it would be finances for realtors because I don't know anybody in my office that hasn't had a run-in with the IRS, right? Because we're in charge of holding that money out or that doesn't have enough in a rainy day fund or an emergency fund. And I think I learned that because in 2008, we hit rock freaking bottom. I was like 21 or 20. I don't know how old I was, but I was in my 20s selling real estate, pregnant with my first kid, about 6 months pregnant. We had bought our house with the intention to flip it in 2 years. And the market just totally went out from under us. We bought it in 2005. Here we are in 2008 with our first baby in a buy level and not the house we wanted to have a family in. And we couldn't sell it if our lives depended on it. And then I'm in a market where selling real estate is how we pay the bills and you can't find a buyer anywhere. So it was a really humbling time. We almost lost our house to foreclosure. It was like the bottom of the bottom. And I remember like having those closings beforehand. I'm living the lifestyle, I'm 20, I get a check. And when we get paid well. And it was all gone. We had not a nest egg. We had nothing to fall back on. So I think I'm grateful now going back through that time because I learned so much. But I think, man, in the good market, you need to be preparing for the down market because this career is so cyclical. It's going to happen. And there's just some really smart financial things that I think realtors could do ahead of time that I wish they knew. So honestly, I like to try to live on 50% of my check because by the time the IRS takes theirs, we get some retirement and then business expenses and things like that. I mean, that's really what you should be living on. So I think just helping the industry kind of reassess what we really make. And I think we invest a lot more into our businesses than people really realize in marketing and stuff like that. So I think financially there could be some learning curves there for a lot of agents. I feel for them. It's hard.
Yeah.
Nobody's teaching it.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's interesting. That seems
It's
like
true.
a pretty important, but yeah, that
Same
does
thing
make
with
sense.
the mortgage industry.
Yep.
Real quick, and I know they were, we could do an entire episode on this, but like compare that Great Recession crash of 2008, 2009 to what you're seeing now here in 2023.
Yeah, totally different in a lot of ways. I will say if the 2008 me learned anything in about 2014, I'm like, gosh, should have bought like 4 properties, right?
Right.
But I wasn't even able to pay my mortgage, so that wasn't an option. But honestly, I look at this opportunity now and I'm like, buy. If you can afford it, you should be buying something right now because you're buying on a dip. We are recession proofed a little bit in the market just because of inventory, right? We don't have enough homes to sell. We have the biggest generation of people coming up that want to buy not only their first house, but also an Airbnb and a rental. And that's their model for retirement. And these kids are smart. We also have baby boomers that can't quite or don't quite want to move out, right? The next care living is expensive, so expensive. So people are staying in their homes a little bit longer. And we've got a lot of buyers coming in. And I think the stat, it's either 60 or 80% of mortgages are less than 3% or 3% right now.
Yeah, I know it's above 60.
Okay.
I want to say it's like 65.
Yeah. And so
in the nation,
what a gridlock.
Have a rate in the 2 or the 3s. They might have thrown 4s in there, but it's 4 or under.
So if you're selling, you have to sell, right? And then the market conditions are not great. And so deals are being had right now. Deals are being made. And my advice to anybody is if you can swing the higher interest rates for a little bit, you should be buying something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because we talk to a lot of buyers too that are on the sidelines and they're waiting. And it's like, well, what are you waiting for?
Right.
Is usually what we ask.
Competition, appraisal gaps, bid over ask, no inspection. Yeah.
Because that is what will come if you're waiting for rates to drop.
Yeah. Prices aren't going down even right now.
They're not.
Yeah.
Because of inventory. But part of the inventory problem, it's not just the new constructions happening. It's not just new build. It's the fact that you mentioned 60 to 80% of homeowners across the country have a rate in the 2s or the 3s or the 4s. So they're not selling. That's why there's not going to be that inventory there.
Right.
I want to know what sort of things you are doing to like ground yourself in a hard market, like to stay like mentally and physically like
it's hard.
Margarita machine that sort of counts. I feel like
seriously, I don't know. The COVID years in the real estate market was just insane. Like I remember on Sundays crying in my car because I'd been showing all weekend. I had 5, 6, 12 buyers that wanted to offer deadlines were Sunday at 5. I couldn't physically write, review, and properly educate my client. It was just a struggle, right? And that was every day for 2 years or every week for 2 years. It was just a lot. So I actually hit pretty good burnout right about the time the market started to slow down. And so this year I've just been kind of listening to my inner like rhythm or my inner voice, and I'm taking it a little bit slower. My production is like way down. I mean, a third probably of where I was. Also, though, mentally, I needed it. Like I needed a minute. My family's needed me. I just need a minute to kind of rebuild. And now I'm starting to feel the energy to rebuild and things are sounding really fun. So I think listening to that and just allowing yourself some space, and hopefully your finances can align with giving you that space. And I think that goes back to making sure you're being really smart with your money. But it's okay if this year I don't hit 40 million, right? It's okay. Like I've been needed in other areas and myself included. So I'm just giving myself that grace to be like, it's not going to be my best year, and that's okay.
Well, you have to like recognize that like there's lots of pieces of your life that need balance and support. And so if it's been off kilter with work for a while, like you have to step back from that sometimes and like address the other things that have maybe not had as much attention. I remember we felt like that end of 2021. It was like I mean, like it was like 2 years of crazy market. Our jobs were, I mean, it was like
24/7.
We couldn't even, I mean, I remember just like not sleeping at night because I was so overwhelmed by just like our lives.
Yeah.
We gotta
and the
go
kids.
to Costa Rica again.
Yeah.
We did. We
did.
did.
Turn the phone off.
Nice.
Yeah.
We
the
did
phones off.
it was the first time we'd ever like taken a week where there was no
Not
phones.
reachable.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm not kidding. I think I was like giggling the whole week. Like I was just like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like,
Because
this
we're
is
so tied to our phones.
Yeah,
Like,
I know.
I'm completely addicted.
Yep.
But I have
Same.
to be because you never know when you're going to need to
I lost
do
a
work.
client while I was giving birth to my daughter. Like, if that does not tell you how this industry rolls, what will? I mean, we have to be. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned a book earlier, like books, podcasts, like how do you feed your mind?
Yeah. Books and podcasts.
Yeah.
For sure.
Any recommendations on books?
Atomic Habits, the 12-week year, that was really cool. There's more. There's so many more. It's hard for me to pull. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, of course, like all those staples.
Yeah, Atomic Habits was a great one.
Yeah.
I love that book.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's every book. I feel like I take just a little nugget from. What's the highest and best use of my time? Or if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Like if I read one book and I have one little thing like that I just remember throughout my day and keeps me on track, worth it. Podcasts, there's so many great podcasts right now. And people that have different views and opinions. And I listen to them, anything from parenting to marriage advice to taxes to investments to real estate. I always have something kind of feeding my brain.
Especially if you're driving around a lot, which like I literally just drive all day.
Yes.
So it's a great way to like use that time to learn new things or like something that you wouldn't necessarily sit down and listen to, you know.
Audible is a business deduction. For sure. Because, we're in the car all the time. And absolutely, it's like a coach.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so on that, if you could write a book about anything in the whole wide world, what would it be about?
Oh, my goodness.
That's
a tough question. I don't know. I find the whole idea of like why we are the way we are so fascinating. So I think just a book around like compassion and just everybody that you meet is fighting something or going through something and trying to come to the table with a little bit more open mind, open ears, and just kind of how to interact with people a little bit better. I think we all I was talking to my teenage son last night, and his friends were like, I like couldn't talk to her at school. And he's like, it's weird because we're like texting and FaceTiming all the time, but I saw her in person. I'm like, and I'm like, their generation's going to struggle with that. Right. So I don't know, just being your authentic self. And I don't know. Yeah. Whatever that would encompass in a book, that something like that.
I'm going to send you this video I saw last night at the school district that I was working with. It was like this video and all these people just like going throughout their day, but it had this like words next to like their head of like what they were going through. And it's like, you just see all of these people and it's like, God, like it's so.
Yep. Or one
so
recently,
true.
there's a mom and it's on TikTok and she sits down with a cup of coffee and has like a quiet minute and all the thoughts that are running through her head. Like it's book date. It's, the book fair tomorrow. I didn't tuck her in well enough. I should have read her all those things. And I'm like, yes. So yeah, we're all human. We're all in this together. This market's been tough. And I think just building each other up and listening a little bit more is something that we all need to work on.
I love that. Don't you feel a little lucky that we came from the generation where like we know how to communicate in person and we also like know how to use technology?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I'd say I know how to use technology. But generally speaking, yes.
Okay, I have a question for you. Do you know how to turn your TV on at home if your husband changes it from an Xbox?
To the input thing? Oh, the Xbox thing? Absolutely not. I literally turn it back off and I'm like, help me.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
He's like made me videos.
Yeah.
Like he'll be like, okay, babe, like I can't do
Still
it,
can't
dude.
figure it out.
I cannot.
I know.
And I just like I watch so closely. Like it's like a whole.
I try really hard.
Well, we do have a responsibility to teach the youth though too.
We do.
Like because it is like it's even Ava, like she has kind of her own phone.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't like give her free access to it all the time, but like even when she has it for a little bit, like texting her friends, emojis, like it's just it's definitely a different world than what we came up in.
Yeah.
I follow you on Instagram, Door to Door Denver. and I think your content is great there.
Thank
Is that where you would recommend our audience check you out?
I do. It's going to
Yeah.
be changing. I'm
Okay.
using kind of this downtime to do some rebranding. My website says I have 2 kids. It's not been touched in 8 years. I think it's
Okay.
time to update. So we're working on that this quarter while things are a little bit slower. So it will be changing to Kendra Lanterman on Instagram. But yeah,
Okay.
that's probably the best way. I'm on all the things, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. It's exhausting, social media. But find me. I would just love to connect with anybody that wants to talk, whether it's an industry partner or a client, however I can help. I'd love to do so. And thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for being
Thanks
here.
for being on.
Yeah.
And for everybody listening, thank you so much for listening. Like us, subscribe, comment. We'd love to hear from you. And we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.